Hello and welcome to another edition of STO Building Group Innovation Expo Behind the Scenes. I'm here today with Jessica Herrala, Regional Vice President of Buildots. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So Jessica, it's great to have you here. If I didn't know anything about Buildots, what would you tell me that you do?
So Buildots in its essential moments is an AI-driven progress tracking and delay forecasting tool.
That's excellent because that's probably one of the things that we've wanted to accomplish and conquer from as long as I've been in the business. And I've said before, I started in the late 80s and I came into the electrical contracting business. Not that that was my background. My background was finance, psychology, and the fine arts. But the company that I worked for was a visionary back then. So you can imagine back in the 80s. And what they were doing was they were trying to track what was installed versus what was estimated. A very important thing to know as a
Yes.
subcontractor. And it was called earned, right, versus estimated.
Yeah.
So am I gaining hours, losing hours? What's going on?
Yeah.
So, and that's where sort of my passion for making things more efficient began. And here we are. It's only 31 years later.
31 years later, and we're kind of still doing it the exact same
Right.
way, to be honest. It's still very manual. I tell people all the time in the industry, outside of the industry, when we're talking about what my company does, and they go, "What do you mean? That doesn't already happen?" And I'm like, no, actually, people are out check marking that every single pipe has been installed. And it's time. It's time for that to change.
I agree. And I think a lot of what the platform does is based on object recognition.
Yes.
So tell me about the learning of the model and how
Yeah.
fast it is and how efficient it is.
Yeah. So the AI is a very visual learner, as not like ChatGPT, right? This is a visual learner. And so what we're doing is teaching the model all the time. This is what a pipe looks like. This is what a conduit looks like. This is what a hanger looks like. This is what drywall looks like. And it is learning constantly based on that. And we can do it down to paint colors because it's seeing not only the shape, but it's also seeing a color change. And so we've been training this model for 7 years. It's one of the most advanced models in the industry, and it learns so quickly. It's beyond compare. And I use an example actually of a customer asked us if we could utilize drones to track underground utility work. Well, nobody's doing that. And it's for this small little data center down in Louisiana that I'm sure everybody knows about. And we thought, well, why the hell not? And so we challenged the product team to go and do this and produce it in 2 weeks' time. And 2 weeks later, we were ingesting drone deploy footage and doing underground utility tracking using the AI. And it's just absolute magic about how quickly it works. And I come from the industry. I'm 30 years in the industry myself. And to watch something that fast happen in construction when we know how long it takes for most things to happen is just magic.
So along the journey, tell me some of the successes that you had. And is there maybe not one, but a couple of those points that said, okay, now I can see the daylight. I can see that the vision can actually be accomplished.
Yeah, I think there's so many of those points, especially in tech when things progress as quickly as they do, right? But I think even in the last couple of years, right? I joined Buildots 2 years ago, and I can see a huge difference just in the last 2 years of not only what the product can do, because the product is evolving constantly, but really what the industry is doing with the product and how they're actually grasping onto it and really making decisions and changing the way that they build based on this data. And I would say those are the biggest success points of the company, right? Is when you can actually see customers, the light comes on, they believe the data, they trust the data, and they say, okay, I don't think that this is right, but I'm going to make a decision based on it. And then the amazingness comes out of it. They're saving $2 million. They're saving $5 million because they caught this delay. The data caught the delay way before they even realized it was there.
Right. So you were talking earlier about progress tracking just really being table stakes.
Yeah.
So tell me about the next phase of the product.
Yeah, I think automated progress tracking to this point is table stakes. And when we're talking about automated progress tracking, just so everybody's clear on what it is, What we're taking is 360 images once or twice a week. We're measuring that against the model and the schedule. So we're creating a 4D model inside our system. The AI is overlaying that planned versus actual. And what it's doing is then calculating and tracking every single element in the building. And this is hundreds of elements in the building, okay? Down to very minuscule things that people wouldn't even think to track. But it all matters because it all adds up. So what we do with all of that massive amounts of data, I kind of call that progress overview part, like where the sausage is made, you know? But does everybody want to know where the sausage is made? Not so much. They want to eat the sausage. So what do we do with that? We take all of this progress data and we create production rates. With those production rates, which by the way, are very hard to calculate on our own. We know this from our own experience, right? But the AI is calculating production rates. And what the AI does with that is start forecasting delays. And what we're doing is showing the smoke before it's fire, right? What we're showing is this is going to be a delay far before anybody in their human eye can see it, and certainly far before the trade is going to raise their hand and say, we're in trouble.
Right.
But I think the cooler part of where we go with this delay forecasting is the predecessors, right? Because again, imagine using this data in a coordination meeting, and you're sitting with the trade and you say, this data is showing you behind. And what's the very first thing a trade says when you say you're behind?
Something's holding me up.
Something's holding me up. And so what our system now does, what Buildots does, it will actually show you through a couple of different channels, one being this amazing line of balance report that we're automating, where the graph actually shows where every single trade is and when they're going to intersect, so we can forecast when they're going to intersect. You can also forecast and see the huge amount of float that exists. And furthermore, it can show all the work-ready areas.
I think it's great. That to me is a huge game changer in so many levels. So first of all, it's how do you take the administrative work away from the superintendents and the project managers so that you can focus things on quality and safety and higher level thinking. In order to do that in the old days, you would have to send out your superintendent assistant supers, go color the drawings, tell us where you are. And then when the trade said, but no, somebody else was there, and like all of the things of the excuses that come into it, there's a change order holding up. I don't have the answer. There's a ladder in my way. Like all those things get like pulled away. And it should be, you think it would be streamlining for the subcontractor as well. They should be embracing this.
And they really are starting to embrace it. I think when I first started in this, a few years ago, I would see the contractors putting the trades like on notice, like, hey, heads up, we have this thing and we're going to beat you over the head with it. But now we're seeing that culture change. And when you see those minuscule things happen, right? You see the culture change happen where instead the contractors, the CMs say, okay, we have this tool. We're going to use it together, especially for their major trades. For major MEP, I think is the biggest benefit, right? And so where everybody can sit in a room, look at the same data. We're all singing from the same sheet of music that we know is accurate. If anybody complains about it, there's photo evidence for every single area, every single piece of equipment. And we can all sit in a room without having to traipse around the job site and waste valuable time waiting on the lift, waiting on this, waiting on that, and actually get some work done and send people where they're going to be most efficient. And you're not going to lose those trades coming in and off the job site, on and off the job site all the time when they're feeling like they're being held up by somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great. It really is that cultural change of saying, it's almost like going into the room in the poll planning session, right? And getting all your trades in there and doing that stuff.
Exactly.
Right? And quite honestly, when you talk to the trades afterwards, you talk to them at the beginning, I don't want to do it, this, that, there's reasons why I don't want to be in the room. But you come out of that and they realize that it is making their job, their trade, their job, their portion of the job, their scope of work, much more efficient.
Yes.
And then it kind of matches everybody. And knowing it's like this coordinated dance that we all try to do. And it really depends usually on the project team, whether it goes good or bad.
Yeah.
But I think with Buildots, it certainly makes us, let's say, more apt to be good.
It does. And that's the whole idea. But it's a real culture change from the very beginning of the project, that you really have to say, okay, we're going to do this differently. And it is a team effort that the whole team really has to agree that every day when you get on that job site, you're going to decide to run that job differently than you did your last job. And today you're going to get up and you're going to make some decisions based on data, even though it might not feel exactly what your gut's telling you, but maybe today I'm going to follow the data.
Okay, so that's project level.
Yeah.
Let's talk about portfolio level.
Yeah.
And when you think about how this actually helps efficiency of management,
Yes.
right? So STO Building Group, almost 5,000 projects, per
Yes.
year, from a $50,000 project to a $1 billion project, and
Yes.
everything in between. And it doesn't just mean that the critical projects are the high value.
That's
There's
right.
critical projects everywhere.
That's right.
So when you think about the efficiency it can bring and the focus it can bring to the management of what should I be looking at,
That's right.
tell me a little bit about how Buildots helps us with that.
That's right. Well, there's a couple of things here, right? What we want to do is be a whole company solution. So we want to be the solution for STO Building Group on all of your projects, right? That's the most important thing, because yes, you have high value projects, maybe in the mission critical space, maybe in the healthcare space, but you might also have a really high value one that's a hotel or a school, right? And you really need a system that's going to be able to cover all of those projects. Now, how we handle that is not only do we cover all the projects, but we also provide this amazing thing called a portfolio dashboard, okay? The portfolio dashboard is where no matter what project exists in the STO Building Group portfolio, you, Bob Mullen, anybody who wants can jump into this system and see the critical path delay and see the status of every single one of these projects at the blink of an eye. And it's all data driven. And it is a way for them to communicate directly with the projects. So the projects have a way to put in their mitigation strategy. You can see the delay and reducing down week over week based on the mitigation strategies that they performed based on using that data. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road, and that's where we're going to get that culture change from the management side. We're seeing the culture change already happen on the project side. Really where we need it to change is on the management side. We want management to change the way that they see and they expect to communicate with the teams.
Right. So that's awesome. I think, even at a job level, the statement I'm going to make is true, but I think when you're talking about a portfolio level, you're just steps away really of layering cost and then manpower.
That's right.
Right. Very important on a job by job basis. But then when you start to think about what could that do for us on a portfolio basis or an enterprise basis, whatever it might be, whether it's the CM using it or actually the subcontract using it for themselves,
Sure.
or the client using it
Sure.
for them. It's incredible. So tell me where you are on that path of the journey.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So currently today, what we do is focus on the construction, right? From start to finish. And that's where we're headed. That's where we are today. Where we're headed is pulling further back into the early stages of the project, where we're doing schedule validation for you based on not only your benchmarks at STO Building Group, but also benchmarks from projects not only in the US and in Canada, but around the world. Of you say that you can do 300 pieces of ductwork a week. You've never done 300 pieces of ductwork a week. So what makes you think you're going to do it today, right, on this project? So we're pulling back and doing some schedule validation. We're also pushing forward past the project and doing more asset management, right? So you're really turning over that digital twin to the owner, and it really becomes an owner benefit as well.
Yeah.
Now, how that matters with cost, right? With the cash, we're a cash business. Cash is king. I will never forget in my life. I've learned that from very early stages in construction. And really what we're talking about here is that you don't ever want the trade to forward bill, right? We all make our money in forward billing. And so this is a great way to be able to say, we're paying you for exactly the work that you put in place. Right. And then you can forward bill the customer if you want, but.
Well, but think about this though, but that gives confidence in the client.
That's right.
Saying, okay, I know what's there. And maybe that can speed payment.
That's right.
Right? Or make payment process more efficient. And
That's
if
exactly
so,
right.
As we know, cash is king. You feed the project with cash and money, that makes the trades work better.
That's exactly right.
So one of the things that you actually just said, which just lit a light bulb, which was you've never put in 300 tons of duck in a day or a week or whatever it is, right? Or at any given time. So now this also helps to say to the client when they make late changes and they say, well, your STO building group, you can do it. Well, but you can't. Sometimes you just can't.
Sometimes you just can't.
And here's the actual data. So it will actually help the client make smarter decisions about what they should implement as a change possibly down the road.
Absolutely.
And that's something, you know, we always struggle with because not only as an organization, as we don't like to say no
Yeah.
to our clients. We like
We
to
don't
say,
either.
yes, we can do it, right? We can do
course.
it. And it always, most of it doesn't always, but it often gets us in trouble at the back end. And we always, oh, but we absorb this change. Okay, but you said you were going to do it. So going back and saying I was going to absorb the change doesn't help
That's right.
the problem. But I think with this tool and with the data that is, you know, the learning part of this to say, no, this is something that wasn't done, hasn't been done, or if it can be done, it's at a high risk.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's amazing to me what you can do just by walking a site once a week with a 360 camera.
Right.
And just walking, you're not taking pictures, you're just walking like you would do any other time, checking on quality, checking on safety. And just by that simple action, the amount of power you have in that data and what it can be done is just unbelievable. It is the way we are going to change this industry, and it's a way we're actually going to start making some money.
So we have this partnership
Yes.
right now. How could we help even more?
Yeah, I think STO Building Group has been an amazing partner to date. And I would say the continued collaboration, the continued communication, I think we treat our customers as partners and we would like to be treated like partners as well, which we certainly feel from STO Building Group every day. But it's a really special partnership to be able to have. And I think the continued engagement and the continued engagement from management, I think will be a huge benefit for us moving forward, just to get everything moving in the right place.
Jessica, thank you again for joining.
Thank you so much for having us.
Tune in next time for another edition of STO Building Group Innovation Expo Behind the Scenes. See you next time.